If you're only on Airbnb or Vrbo, you don't own a business, you just own a listing. Ready to take full control of your hosting? Lodgify helps you run your vacation rental like a real business. Automated guest messaging, your very own direct booking website. Don't stay dependent on OTAs forever. Build your brand. For Sweet Success listeners, grab 20% off any yearly Lodgify plan with code SWEET20. That's sweet like Hotel Suite 20. Just hit the link in the show notes to get started.
I am Shana Stephenson, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I am really excited to welcome Shana Stephenson to the show. Shana is the Chief Brand Officer of the New York Liberty, where she has overseen one of the most exciting transformations in professional sports. Under her leadership, the Liberty became a cultural force in New York City and clinched their first ever WNBA championship. A former ESPN marketing professional with nearly 20 years of sports industry experience, Shana's work has been featured in Fast Company, The Washington Post, Sports Illustrated, and more. She's written for outlets like Essence, MSNBC, and Refinery 29, and her visionary leadership has earned her numerous accolades, including being named to Ad Age's 2024 class of leading women. Shana, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you.
I am so excited to chat with you because as a little girl, I loved to play basketball, probably something most people don't know about me because unfortunately I definitely don't play well anymore or a lot anymore. But there's something that was really special to me as a child that I immediately thought of when I knew we were going to have this conversation. And there had been this cartoon in the newspaper that I loved so much. I cut it out and I taped it to the back of my childhood bedroom door. And it had 3 frames in the cartoon. And in the first frame, it was a little boy and a little girl on a basketball court. And the little boy looks at the girl and says, "You play like a girl." Mm-hmm. And in the second frame, you can see the little girl thinking with her little, thought bubble. And it says, "Rebecca Lobo, Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie." This was the 90s, of course. Mm-hmm. And in the third frame, she says, "Thank you." And so I really would love to start there because obviously that it really touched me at the time. It was something that empowered me to see that representation. So what did representation in sports mean to you growing up? And what does it mean to you now being one of the people that's really shaping this for the next generation?
Yeah, that's a really special story, especially considering how long it's taken us to get to where we are today, where playing like a girl is championed and celebrated and not seen as a derogatory remark or comment. But I would say my earliest memories of representation and seeing myself in sport were represented by Dominique Dawes, who is a gymnast, Black woman, and then also Florence Griffith Joyner, who was a track and field athlete. And she wore a one-legged sleeve and on her leg and had really long nails. And at the time, I may not have been able to have the vocabulary for it or to understand that what she represented was, intersection of sport and fashion and culture. But there was something about her that I was truly able to identify with as a young Black girl at that time.
Yeah.
And to see her on magazine covers and her, being the best in her sport. And then the same with Dominique Dawes, it really resonated with me. And then, the Williams sisters emerged into the spotlight and that resonated with me. And then in the 96 Olympics is when, women's basketball and all of the players that you just named really emerge into the spotlight and representing USA basketball. And that launched the WNBA a year later. So all of those moments, and I guess a lot of them are tied to the Olympics, ironically enough, have really shaped me as today. And, similar to yourself, I'm not really an athlete. I mean, I run and I work out, but I played basketball in 7th and 8th grade and I wasn't very good. I played volleyball in 7th and 8th grade, wasn't very good. I'm only 5 feet tall. So I knew I would never have, a high school career in either of those sports, let alone college or professional. So for me, it was really about just enjoying the game and enjoying the athleticism and skill of these women. And then today, to be in a position where, to your point, I get to shape this industry and shape the images and how, women athletes are perceived and amplify their voice and everything that we're doing. It's definitely a pinch me moment, a moment that I don't take for granted, a moment that, I feel a sense of gratitude for, but also like a huge responsibility to get right and not fumble this opportunity.
No pressure.
Yeah.
You are from Long Island originally, right?
I am, yes.
Me too. So I'm from Hicksville originally.
Oh, okay. So I'm from Massapequa, but I went to Trinity Lutheran, which was in Hicksville.
I grew up down the block from Trinity.
Wow.
Literally, like I could throw a stone at it from my house.
That's insane. And I also went to Holy Trinity.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So my cousins went there. That's so funny.
Such a small world.
Yeah, small world. And I wanted to ask you because people make a comment to me about it all the time, and I'll tell you how I got here. But you also don't have a Long Island accent. Did you work on getting rid of it, or had you never had a Long Island accent?
I don't think I ever had one, to be honest.
Really?
So, I mean, it depends on, I think it might come out once in a while, but my mom is from Harlem. And so even though I grew up on Long Island and went to school there, my whole life was shaped by Harlem. So even I've lived there now in Harlem over 20 years. So
right.
I don't know how I didn't, pick up a Long Island accent.
Yeah. I mean, it is thick. And mine used to be very, very thick. And anytime I'm home with my family, I'm like, wow, I can hear it now. I had a boss at my first job when I was 22 years old in working in fashion. She would stop meetings and correct my pronunciation, which was absolutely mortifying. Oh, no. However, it was very effective. And now I feel like you have kind of an accent that kind of blends, that people wouldn't immediately be like, oh, that's Long Island right there.
I think, you can hear that it's a New York accent. The first time someone really called me out on my accent was when I pronounced ORANGE, orange, and not orange. And she corrected me, she was like, wait, pronounce that again. And I was like, orange. I didn't even understand what she was trying to get at. And then she was like, that's not how you pronounce it. And I was like, no. So that was a moment where I was like, I guess I do have an accent, but I never really noticed it myself until it was pointed out.
We don't notice these things because where we grow up, that's normal, right? The first time I left the country was when I found out it was funny to be from a place called Hicksville. I didn't know it was funny because it was normal to me.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And so going back, you said, you played sports, but you weren't, necessarily interested in becoming a professional athlete, let's say. But you always enjoyed the game. And I imagine, because I know you have a master's in sports business from NYU. You're from New York originally, as we were just talking about. So on paper, what you're doing right now sounds like that perfect job for you. So I did hear that you were pre-med at one point. So was it like this was the path that you were supposed to go, or were you going down a different route at some point and then eventually found your way here?
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of both. So I was always a sports fan. I wrote it, read it, listened to it, watched it. However I could consume it, I did ad nauseum, right? And so I would start at the back of the newspaper and work my way back to the front. So I would start reading the sports news, in the morning when I would like ride the bus to school. That was what I did on my commute. Or when I started working and taking the train into the city, and I was, would commute on the Long Island Railroad before I moved into Harlem. I would start and read the back of the newspaper. I would watch everything I could. I would listen to sports talk radio. Like I grew up listening to The Fan in the car with my parents. And so it was really ingrained in who I was. But I never really thought of it as a career path because I never saw anyone that looked like me in those spaces. And so I just never even considered it. And even in college, I would meet my friends out at the club later because I needed to finish watching a basketball game. It was like March Madness, and I was like, I'll catch up with you guys later. I want to see how this ends. Or if Venus Serena had a day match and I had classes, I'm dating myself because I had a VCR in college, but I would like record it on the VCR and then go home and watch it later. So it was always a part of who I was. But when I started at college, I was a chemistry pre-med major because I loved chemistry in high school, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So it was like, you just say doctor, lawyer, whatever. So I chose the doctor path, and it was really tough. College was not easy for me initially, and my GPA dropped very low. And then I pivoted to psychology because at that point it was just about surviving. And, I was like, well, with psychology, it's just, I just need to read books and write papers, and I can do that. And I did. And then I also had a love for fashion. So in my senior year, when the majority of my classes were done, I took a lot of fashion electives. And that's when I pivoted into fashion first. But I was always still very much into sports. But again, I didn't know that could be a thing. Like I could work for it until later on in my career when a number of people were like, have you ever thought about working in sports? Have you ever thought about it? And then I looked into it. And at that point, I had a lot of marketing experience. And I figured I could just parlay that experience into the sport industry, but so hard to break into. It's an extremely competitive and saturated industry. And so even though I had a lot of great sports or marketing experience, I wasn't getting the responses that I'd hoped. And a lot of the resumes were looking for someone who had interned in sports or who had a master's or an MBA. And I didn't have any of that. And that's when I made the decision to go to NYU to get my master's in sports business. And it worked out.
Yeah, it's so interesting. We have so many parallels in our story because I was very similar. I started working in fashion as well. I was working on the PR side of things instead of marketing. And I eventually thought the same kind of, let me take this into my passion world, which is travel and hospitality. And I had all this great PR experience. I would read all of the trade outlets and everything in the travel space, just like you were saying, you're like this voracious consumer of all things sports. And every time I would interview, it'd be like, but you don't have travel experience. And it takes either that right company, that right hiring manager, or like you said, going out and saying, you know what, then I'm going to go get a master's that will show you people that I definitely do have the experience. But I want to go back to what you said about, nobody looked like you. So you didn't even know that this could be a career path. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about with how far we've come in women's sports, but also still how far we have to go. So when you look at how far we've come, what gives you hope and what frustrates you that we're only this far in 2025?
I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the WNBA announced expansion into 3 more markets. And that was after announcing expansion into 3 markets, I guess, about 2 years ago, right? And so in a short amount of time, we're growing from a 12-team league to an 18-team league. And that there just speaks to the future of women's sports and, just the investment that is being made into growing women's sports and expansion into different markets. And that's allowing more opportunity for players to have jobs and do what they love here in America. And then I also think about, the NWSL and Love and, the new volleyball leagues that are also emerging. And that makes me really excited. I attended the Olympics last season and also watched it on TV. And women drove the Olympics. When you think about what Simone Biles was able to do, when you look at swimming, when you look at all of these other sports, U.S. women's basketball team, they've won, I think it was like their 6th or 7th gold medal in a row, complete dominance across the board. That's what women's sports is about, right? And so I love to see the media devoting devoting more coverage to telling women's athlete stories, to covering the games and the competition. So that is what really excites me. I was at WNBA All-Star this weekend in Indiana, and to see so many fans from across the country really descend in many to witness women's basketball, it was just so exciting. And you see all of the teams represented by their local fan bases. And, they're traveling. You talk about hospitality. All of them are traveling to experience a women's all-star game. It's becoming a major destination for our fans to be able to celebrate and participate in what they love. And then also I think about, a league like Unrivaled that was about 2 months in Florida. It was at one site, multiple fans just traveling down to the Miami area to experience Unrivaled in its inaugural season. So there's an appetite, and it's only growing. And I love to see that the media sees it, partners see it and are investing in it, and the fans are showing up. If you build it, they will come. Well, they're coming. This is huge. Yeah. What I would like to see more of is still more coverage, but I think overall we're trending in the right direction. And so there's a lot to be encouraged by when I look at where we are today.
Yeah. Speaking of kind of an evolution, if we go back to 2018, the Liberty were up for sale. They had relocated to Westchester. They'd lost, I think, 70% of their fan base. And now fast forward to last year, the Liberty is in their Brooklyn home. They're the reigning WNBA champs. They're selling game after game out, and really creating these cultural moments that are starting to transcend sports. So give us the behind the scenes scoop on what happened and really what you did to make a lot of that possible.
Yeah, so 2018 was a special year. I think, at that time I was brought on as a consultant by our CEO, Kia Clark, and she was pretty much spearheading the acquisition of the Liberty once they were put up for sale, and she didn't really have a team. And so she was familiar with my work and asked me if I would come on as a consultant to help lead marketing while they figured out, what the future of the team looked like. And I said yes. And it was very clear from the beginning what we were working toward. And that was for the team to be relocated to Brooklyn. We knew that we did not want the New York Liberty to suffer the fate of other WNBA teams and either fold completely or be relocated to another market. We had such a strong, rich, devoted, loyal fan base, and we wanted to do right by them. And also it's New York. And so what signal does that make if the team in New York folds? It's not good, representation of what the future of the league could potentially look like. And so we understood what it meant for the New York Liberty to continue to thrive after they were put up for sale. And so immediately got to work and being from New York helps, and just being familiar with the history of the franchise and what they mean to New York, and someone who's followed, the Liberty since they emerged in 1997. And also just tapping into like New York culture, basketball culture, which is so rich here in New York, and really leaning into all of that to show that this city still deserve a team. And it was a matter of us selling out Westchester, which, only 2,500 seats, if that, in a venue that was not at all fit for a professional basketball team. And you might say, like, why can't you sell 2,500 tickets? Well, when the team is relocated about, 30 minutes outside of the market into the, suburbs of the city, and it's not as accessible, it's really challenging. And so we still had to put on a good entertainment show. We still had to make sure that the history and what people knew the Liberty to be was maintained, and do that in a truly authentic way. And so that's what really mattered to me. And so once we got the word that the team was relocating to Brooklyn, that's when things really started to click. And, we really went into strategy mode in terms of how did we want this brand to reemerge in Brooklyn. And I saw it as a huge opportunity for us to still hold on to some of the traditions that our fans loved and knew from when we played the majority of our seasons at, in Manhattan. But also, this was a opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah.
But you don't really get a lot of chances to do it, right? So it's like, okay, if we're going to take some risks and do some things that haven't been done before, we have to make sure that we nail it and we get it right. And, that started with just, immersing ourselves in culture in a way that women's sports hadn't seen before. And I'll admit, the advantage of us being in New York, where there's Broadway and there's Fashion Week and there's US Open and it's a major music hub, that was really at the heart of everything that we were doing. So it was a matter of us putting our players in position to experience a lot of that up close and personal in the way that I hadn't before, or bringing those cultures to Brooklyn, and really just, bringing those worlds together. And I've always felt like, even before I started working with the Liberty, as you mentioned, I used to write. I also did some on-camera work, et cetera. And everything that I did was about culture and the immersion of culture and fashion and music and sport. And that's my background. Like, I come from a fashion background. I've always loved sports. Florence Griffith Joyner, FloJo, was one of my idols growing up. And so to see how she was able to compete, but still be who she was as a Black woman, whether it be through her nails or her long hair and her one-legged tight, like, that all resonated with me. And so it's not shocking that today it shows up in the work that I do or that I lead for this brand, because it's always been a part of who I was and how I saw sport. I always saw sport through that cultural lens.
Yeah, that comes through so loudly, I think, in everything that you guys have done with the New York Liberty. And after hearing you speak at the Travel and Leisure World's Best Summit, I went down a deep rabbit hole of Ellie videos. Speaking of hair flips, I mean, come on, Ellie is so cool. And, hearing about where that name came from as well. So I guess if we talk a little bit more about the rebrand, something you said there was you were taking really big risks, but the stakes were high. Like, you had to get it right, because it's, not cheap, I imagine, to go to a WNBA game, and you want those fans who have spent the money and the time to come to be like, that was so much fun. That was so incredible. We have to go back. Let's tell everyone we have to go back versus that one time they come and it falls flat and they say, okay, that was great. But like next time, let's do something else. Right. So it's really cool to hear that you took all these big risks because I could see someone else saying the pressure is too much. We have to get it right. That like, it's too scary to take the risk. So I guess talk a bit about that. Like, how did you feel empowered to take these risks and what are some of the biggest ones that paid off?
Well, first, I have an incredible boss in Kia Clark, our CEO. Like, she trusts me. She also has a marketing background, so she understands what goes into marketing and executing a vision. And so that's been extremely helpful that she gives me a lot of autonomy to really push the needle, and also ownership as well. Like they really trust us to know what's best for the brand. And so they don't really micromanage. If anything, they're like, where can we help? How can I leverage my resources to help grow what you're doing? And so it's great when you work at an organization that trusts you and really gives you the freedom to move how you want to move and, execute your vision in the way that you see it. And also surround yourself with resources that helps you do that as well. When I started, I was a one-woman show. Like I literally did it all. I shot the content, I wrote the copy, I published on Instagram, I was updating the graphics during the game. I was doing it all. And so now that I have a team that is a lot more skilled than I, but equally as invested in what it is that we're doing and really understands the purpose and the mission behind what we're doing, it has really made my life and my job a lot easier than it was when I started. But I think, one of the biggest risks that we took was introducing a new mascot. Teams keep the same mascot they've had for forever, even if times are changing and evolving. And that's scary because fans do become attached to your mascot and the story and the experiences that they've had with that mascot. But we knew that when we were relocating to Brooklyn, Maddie, who was named after our previous home, couldn't come to Brooklyn with us. And so, but we also had to be really thoughtful about that transition because a lot of our day one fans had developed a real personal attachment to Maddie. And so we didn't want this to be done in a really callous and tasteless way. And we put a lot of thought into, what this new iteration of our mascot could be, but also how do they relate to Maddie as well? And so that was one huge risk that we took. And when we introduced Ellie in 2021, we were still kind of like in the fog of COVID, and Ellie performing as center court didn't even exist in 2021 because of COVID. And there were so many testing protocols and, she wasn't allowed to be down on the court. And so that first season, she was performing in the end zone on a stage and wasn't really able to connect with our fans in a way that we see today. And so it took a little bit for Ellie to kind of like get comfortable and for fans to become comfortable with her. But I would say that that's definitely one of the risks that paid off and continues to pay off for us today. What else? I think just like truly leaning into Brooklyn culture is another example of that. We pride ourselves on being New York's team. And so a lot of what we do is still about, very inclusive of all the boroughs of New York. But if you come to our games, it definitely has a Brooklyn feel to it that didn't exist when we were in Manhattan. And I think I can make the argument that even Ellie couldn't exist in Manhattan the way that she does in Brooklyn. Brooklyn just has a different energy about it. Just like a cooler factor about it than our other boroughs do. And I think, as someone being from New York, you can't just show up here and get that. Like you have to have really like lived in New York, understand the city in a way that makes everything that you do feel really intentional and authentic, and not, like you're copying from anyone else, because people can pick up on that in a way. So I would say that those are probably two of the risks that have paid off.
You're so right, especially in New York, but I think it's probably true of most places, right? Like if you're not from here, you just think New York City. And then when you start to understand, you understand the different boroughs, but then even within the boroughs, you have different areas. And within those areas, you have different sections. And you really had to know, what you were marketing and what you were trying to celebrate. And for anyone listening or watching who isn't familiar with the New York Liberties mascot, Ellie, I encourage you to also go down a video rabbit hole, because I have never seen, I don't think, a mascot like her, in the sense that she is dancing with your dance team and always has a different look about her too. And that just makes her feel so zeitgeist and so ever evolving with the time and with Brooklyn and very, New York.
And it makes her feel very now too, and really tapped into pop culture, and what's hot right now, what's hot tomorrow. She sets trends all on her own. And like you mentioned, there's never been another mascot like Ellie. She's on the cover of magazines. She's walking the red carpet. She's dancing alongside Sierra and Justin Timberlake, not at our games, but at their concerts at Barclays Center, or, alongside Lil' Kim at our games as a halftime performer. Tyla, we had a moment where Tyla attended our game and we played her song and Ellie started doing her dance, and they did it together, on the sideline. So just being able, and that's also just like, again, one of the advantages of benefits of being in New York. We become a destination for celebrities and influencers, and to be able to recreate those social media moments in real life is something that you can't get anywhere else. And so we are just happen to be able to, capitalize off of that. And in some respects also like choreograph those moments to happen. And we've created an environment where it's a party and celebrities and influencers want to be a part of that party. And so it's just really great.
Most of our listeners, viewers come from the hospitality and travel world. And I imagine you're thinking about a lot of the same things that we're thinking about: arrival experience, flow of energy, like you were just saying, personalization, or maybe surprise and delight moments like the Tyla moment that you were just mentioning. What does hospitality mean in terms of within the context of a live sporting event?
Yeah, I think it is a lot of what you said. The experience can be made or broken by your ingress. If it's a nightmare for fans to get in the building, then it's already, turn them off to what they might experience once they get inside. And so that's something that we are really prideful about, is just trying to make it as less, frictionless as possible. So we have express lines for some of our fans. We've just rolled out a facial recognition technology that allows fans to, move through the building more easily. For our VIP fans, there's a special entrance for them as well. And then once you're inside, it's also about merch. Is there a great merch offering? How many sizes? Our fan base is very diverse. Male, female, all ages. And we want to make sure that we have something for everyone at every price point. We want it to be premium for the people who have a little bit more discretionary income to spend, and then also accessible and affordable for people who, are living paycheck to paycheck, but really want to come out and experience a Liberty game and also grab a t-shirt or an Ellie plushie for their child. So that's something that we're always thinking about. Our concessions experience is something that's also top of mind for us. not only having options for everyone. I used to be vegan. I'm no longer vegan, but I still consume about an 85% vegan diet. I do consume fish, but I'm also still non-dairy. So I'm all over the place. And so when I go experience a concert or a Broadway show or a sporting event and I'm hungry, I don't want to just have to default to French fries every time, And so it's like thinking about that. But then also we're in Brooklyn, the taste, there's so many different cuisines that exist within Brooklyn, exist within New York. And so working with local vendors to have their cuisine also within our building. So if you're a Caribbean, you can get a beef patty. If you're Asian, there's an Asian concession stand. So you can just feel like your culture is really represented within our game experience. And then we also have our more premium hospitality spaces like Crown Club, which is VVIP. If you are a season ticket holder and you have courtside seats, then you're invited to dine there pre or post game. But also if you're a celebrity or an influencer, then you may also be invited to dine there. But then there are also other premium spaces that exist within the building. And then also we, with our game presentation, are really great about involving the crowd. And I like our game experience to be turn up a party, lots of energy from start to finish, regardless of what the score is. And obviously, how the team plays drives a lot of what we do within our building, but also we recognize that the players also feed off the energy of our crowd. And so working really closely with our DJ and our game day director to help really corral that energy in a positive way so they can, if they're down 10 points, rally. Ellie is fantastic at reading the crowd and the audience and understanding what they might need in any given moment and really feeding off of that. And so our fans also react to what Ellie is doing. Our players react to what Ellie is doing. So it's an all-inclusive experience, full circle, full 360 experience. We want our fans to really feel a part of it and that they that their energy contributes to how our players perform on the court. And so there are moments that are built into the game that help them really get involved as well. And so those are all really important moments for us. It's also about making sure that the stats are up on the Jumbotron. So for those fans who are really locked into, a player being 2 rebounds away from a triple-double, we make it really easy for them to follow along in that way. And then we also insert like some storytelling within our games as well, get to know the players a little bit more. So constantly thinking of ways that we can evolve that, but also knowing that, it's really important that our fans at the very foundation of it have a easy experience getting in the building, and then anything that they want, they're able to purchase or, have, and that's an easy process for them also.
Yeah. It sounds like you're really trying to have something for everyone, whether it's, like you said, the cuisine, making sure it's different cultures, but it's also different dietary preferences. Or if you're there for the stats, we've got that for you. But if you're there for the entertainment, we have that as well. Like you're really thinking about it cohesively.
Yeah.
Over the summer, you were a panelist at Travel and Leisure's World's Best Summit. And the topic you were discussing was sports and event tourism, something that we've all witnessed the economic power of. From Taylor and Beyonce to the Olympics, which you've mentioned a few times now, and the World Cup. Sports and live events have really become a major driver of travel demand. What are you seeing when it comes to fans traveling into New York for a New York Liberty game?
I love this question because this is my 8th season with the team. And this season we've had the most sellouts than, we've had year over year. Wow. And I think part of that has to do with tourism. New York is obviously a major travel destination, regardless of what you're visiting New York for, especially when you look at the summer. But it seems like the New York Liberty Games are becoming more of a destination for tourists who are visiting the city. On a personal anecdote, a friend of mine from college who lives in North Carolina recently was visiting New York with her daughter and her daughter's dance team. So I think it was about a group of 11. And they purchased tickets to our game because they not only wanted to experience the Liberty game, but as dancers, they're familiar with our entertainment. They love Ellie and they wanted to see how all of that comes together.
Yeah.
And so for them, that was, what a major priority for them. I also think Ellie has become a huge fan favorite across the globe. And, she's gone viral on social media and people are just curious and want to see and experience her live for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they'll get lucky and get a selfie with Ellie or buy some Ellie merch at our team store. And I love that there are multiple reasons that people are coming to Liberty Games, because whether it's Ellie that's driving you there, and then once you get there, you experience, what that all-encompassing, electrifying energy is in the building, and then also get to see how wonderful our players are. It makes you fall in love with the Liberty as a whole. If you came for Ellie, but you stay for the basketball, I'm not mad about that. I love it. If you're a huge Stewie fan, and then you come and you fall in love with, Natasha Cloud and how fierce she is of a player, now you're going to our team store and getting her jersey as well, even though you came here as a Stewie fan. So I think that we really do have the full package. And that's something that fans from New York or outside of New York or other countries are really curious about experiencing when they come to Brooklyn to a Liberty game.
Especially once you see that love affair start, I imagine you then see fans traveling to follow the team as well. So not just into New York, but into other destinations where they're playing or for big events like the WNBA finals. What do you think they're looking for in those travel and hospitality experiences?
It's interesting. I think, WNBA fans or women's sports fans, I don't think are your average fans. We compete, but we also love each other and, are supportive of each other. And so, I recently was at WNBA All-Star and there were so many Liberty fans there, just like decked out in Liberty gear, all ages, genders. It really was amazing to see. But also there were so many fans from other teams also well represented at All-Star. And then they're commingling. Or my favorite is when I see someone in, a Sabrina jersey, but they might be wearing a baseball cap of another team. And, they're fans of the players, they're fans of teams, they're fans of multiple players in the league. And that's what women's basketball is all about. It's about sisterhood and celebrating that. And so while we might be competitive on the court, when you think about it, everyone is also really invested in the growth and upliftment of these players and upliftment of this league. And that's what really brings everyone together and unites them across the board. And so when they're traveling to other arenas, you're not going to see their fans be disrespectful towards visiting fans.
Yeah.
I remember attending a Yankees Red Sox game in Boston. I'm a Yankees fan. Yankees Red Sox game in Boston. And those fans at Fenway were so mean to the Yankees fans. It was appalling. And you don't get that at WNBA games, right? And so that is a moment that really sticks out to me as a fan who was traveling to another city to watch one of my teams.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I don't think like WNBA fans or women's sports fans engage in that type of, behavior.
I had never thought of it that way. Growing up a Yankees fan, I know exactly what you mean between Red Sox and Yankees. I lived in the UK for 6 years. So if you've seen soccer or football matches there, I mean,
Right.
they'll have the sections where the visiting fans can go so that they're protected. That's really actually very cool and very special. And actually probably makes fans more apt to travel for the team because they know it's going to be a welcoming, fun, competitive
Yeah.
environment, but not
Yeah.
that kind of nastiness that can underpin what we were just talking
Right.
about. And
Right.
something else I know that you guys discussed on the panel was how modern day travelers, particularly athletes, which I'm sure a lot of fans are as well, they're looking for travel providers to help them maintain their health and fitness routines while on the road. They're not looking to say, oh, I'll get back to that when I'm home. They want to be that same person when they're away. Is that something you're seeing in the team's ecosphere as well?
I can't speak to that in terms of our fans. I can speak personally about that. I'm pretty active and I'm someone who works out anytime I travel. Like I will pack my gym shoes and my workout gear and I will make sure that I maintain that lifestyle and I work
Yeah.
out, especially because if I'm traveling, it also means I'm probably going to be drinking a lot. And I want to make sure that I'm not
Balance. It's called
feeling
balance,
guilty.
people.
Yeah, I'm not feeling guilty about, just indulging a little
Yep.
bit more than I might usually do at home. So
Mhm.
I just make sure that I prioritize waking up every morning and hitting the gym
Mhm.
before I, engage in whatever it is that I'm there to do.
Will you pick your flight or your hotel based on amenities that can help you support
Oh,
that? Yeah,
100%. So I'm a huge Peloton person.
same.
But I've actually I don't ride the bike as much anymore. I'm obsessed with the treadmill now. And so
Mm.
I definitely will look at the pictures of the gym before I book a hotel. One, if they have Peloton, equipment, amazing. But if they don't, I would just want to make sure that they have a gym that has good equipment or it's spacious enough for me to do weights and, do the treadmill if I want. So I definitely will book a hotel based on that.
Something else you said during the summit was in relation to women's sports paraphernalia or merch. And you mentioned it as well with the Liberty too. And you said, I had never heard this phrase before, but I thought that is so accurate that the old model was to pink it and shrink it, which is so true. I think of all the gaudy, like rhinestone, lace embellished shirts where you're just like, no, I just want the same one as the guys, but just something that fits me or in a nicer fabric or something. So, can you explain a bit about maybe that old school version and then what the New York Liberty is doing today to really counteract that?
Yeah, so there was that pink it and shrink it model where it was literally just like, let's just produce what we produce for the men, but make it pink and smaller.
Hmm.
And, that didn't work because one, we're fans of our team. So I mentioned I'm a Yankees fan. If I'm a Yankees fan, I want to wear blue and white because
Hmm.
that's the colors of my team. I don't want to
Right.
wear pink. That is not the Yankees color. So
But
I
Shayna,
don't
you're
want
a girl. Don't you only wear pink?
so our colors are seafoam, black and white. Don't assume that our fans want to wear pink because they're
Hmm.
women. So I think that strategy is long gone, which is great. And so what
Hmm.
we've done is we've continued to just lean into what our actual brand colors are. And I think we have the flyest, dopest colorway in all of sports
You
with
do.
our own black and white. And it's just fresh. Um, but also when we think about the silhouettes of the merchandise that we're producing, do we have crop tops for those who want to wear something a little cropped? Do we have shirts that are, in men's sizes and cut for men? Do we have taller, or longer cut shirts or options for people who might have longer torsos. So really thinking through what those silhouettes are that we're producing, to again make sure that we're servicing everybody, because we just can't assume that everyone wants to wear the same thing. And we're really doing our best to explore different vendors who can give us what we want. We work with local artists as well to help us produce different merch and offer different merch, especially when we look at our theme nights. What does that look like, and how can we insert some of the cultures that we are celebrating on our theme nights through our merch and collaborating on that. So that's something that is definitely a priority for us. And as much merch as we offer, and I'm proud of the merch that we offer, we're never at a point where it's like, okay, we have enough. We're always thinking about how else we can continue to like grow our offering and serve our fans better.
You have earned some really incredible awards, very well deserving. Ad Age's Leading Women's list, Crane's Notable Black Leaders list, and Adweek's 2025 Most Powerful Women in Sports. These are just a handful of them, but I mean, that one alone, wow. Which of these awards felt the most meaningful to you, and why?
I would say the Crane's Notable Black Leaders was special just because I was recognized by my own community and for the work that I've done. And so that's always special when, a lot of the work that I do is to amplify Black people and Black women, and for them to recognize that.
Yeah.
That was really meaningful to me. And then also the most recent one, which is, Adweek's 2025 Most Powerful Women in Sports list. That one completely caught me off guard. To be honest, I was not expecting that at all. And then to be mentioned in the same, category as like Brianna Stewart, who's on our team and founded an entire sports league, like that is wild to me to see the work that I'm doing recognized and celebrated on that same level. So that one is very special.
Sure. Yeah. Certainly well deserved. Shana, I want to ask you the last three questions that I ask every guest. And the first is, what was the best hospitality experience you've ever had?
Oh, this is a great question. So I'll actually give two responses, one that was professional and one that was personal. So on a personal note, I traveled to Grenada and I stayed at Silver Sands, which if you're not familiar with Silver Sands, it's a really beautiful resort. And I believe they have the longest pool in the Caribbean. I think like that's their like claim to fame. But so modern, and the hospitality of it was wonderful. My best friend and I often travel for our birthdays, and we took a trip there for our birthday one year, and they really did everything they could to like continue to elevate our experience because they knew that we were celebrating our birthdays. And so that's a resort that I've recommended to several people, and I continue to recommend, and I will absolutely go back and visit soon, I hope. So I would say Silver Sands and Grenada. And then on a professional level, I was invited to speak at a conference in Cabo, and they flew me out first class plus a guest. I don't remember the name of the resort we stayed, but it was just a top tier experience through and through, from the hotel or from the airport, and them flying me out plus a guest, and first class, and then getting there. And the resort that we stayed at was also a first class resort, and the conference was a first class experience as well. So those two experiences really have stood out for me.
That sounds amazing. What was the worst hospitality experience you've ever had?
I don't know. I honestly don't travel. I travel very well. I
Bravo.
I travel very well. Like, I'm very intentional about how and when I travel and the experience that I want for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have many bad, or nothing comes to mind to me right now that's like a
Wow.
bad hospitality
We
experience.
all need you to help plan our travels in the future because you have the magic pill, I think.
I research. I'm one of those that's in the comments, reading all of the reviews. I go to the Instagram to like see if the pictures really match what was shown on their website.
Right.
I am on Instagram and I will search the location to see videos of travelers that have also been there to see if it really reflects what they're saying it does. So I do my research and my due diligence before I book anything.
I love that. I love to hear a fellow type A winning.
Yes.
Research wins, guys. Do it.
Yes.
It's amazing. Final question for you. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand that you think has truly mastered it?
Oh, what does hospitality mean to me? I think when I think about hospitality, I think about like just curating memorable experiences for your audience or fans or travelers or whatever it is, and putting them first and anticipating what their needs and wants are, and making that easy for them. So that's what I think about when I think about hospitality. And who does
It doesn't
it
have to be
right?
a hotel. It doesn't have to be like
Yeah.
can just be, a friend or somebody that you think, wow, they really get hospitality.
My mom, actually, she's like, oh, she's wonderful. So her and my dad live in North Carolina, and I swear there's someone staying with them every other week. But my mom cooks every meal. She makes sure that there's treats in your room when you arrive. She's very, very thoughtful about how people experience their home and that they feel like they're at home when they're there, but also that they have enough privacy, but that they're comfortable. And so I think that she absolutely is like the best hostess ever. And she just gets it and she does it right every single time.
Well, Shana, this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you for taking the time. And I really need to go to a New York Liberty game. You made it sound absolutely incredible.
Are you based in New York?
I am. I'm in Queens.
Oh.
So I love everything you're saying about Brooklyn. We're in your shadows over here in Queens, but
Oh, well, I don't live in Brooklyn and it's fine. So yeah, we can definitely make that happen.
well, thank you again.
Make that happen.
All right, everyone. It's time for today's sweet summary where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. When I first started chatting with Shana, I mentioned that cartoon, which meant so much to me as a kid. But I didn't get to share another related memory. In my 5th grade yearbook, under each awkward school photo, every student got to put what we wanted to be when we grew up. There were future doctors, teachers, lawyers, and in my sister's case, the popcorn lady at the movie theater. True story. But my answer was a professional ballerina and a WNBA player. Now, the idea of one of those dreams coming true, let alone both, is maybe a little out there. For those of you who know me well or are regular listeners, that level of overachieving ambition probably tracks. But still, the reason little Katie could dream that big in the first place comes back to something Shana and I spent a lot of time talking about: the power of representation. For me, it was seeing myself in that cartoon and in those players that made the dream feel possible, achievable, not ridiculous to preserve forever in a yearbook. But what if I hadn't had someone to look to? For Shana, sports were everything. She'd be late meeting friends because she had to finish watching a game, or she'd record it if she couldn't watch it live. She read the newspaper back to front. But when it came time to pick a major, or eventually a career path, she didn't even consider working in sports because she didn't see anyone who looked like her doing it. She didn't know it was possible. Not yet, anyway. Now she's building a brand where others can see themselves. You see it in the food options at Barclays, which caters to a variety of cultures and dietary preferences. In the merch, which stitches the old pink it and shrink it model for pieces fans actually want to wear. And in the game day experience itself. If you're there for the stats, the Jumbotron makes them easy to follow. If you came for the entertainment, Ellie the mascot won't disappoint. And if you're there for one player, you might just discover another to root for too. The reason you walked into that arena might not be the same reason you return. And that's the point. Because Shana and her team are building a brand and an experience for everyone, not just a caricature of what a fan should eat or wear or look like. It's for the loud ones, the casual ones, the stat nerds, the first-timers, the lifers, the kids. It's for the kind of diverse, passionate crowd that only a city like New York could deliver.
And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.
If you're only on Airbnb or Vrbo, you don't own a business, you just own a listing. Ready to take full control of your hosting? Lodify helps you run your vacation rental like a real business. Automated guest messaging, your very own direct booking website. Don't stay dependent on OTAs forever. Build your brand. For Sweet Success listeners, grab 20% off any yearly Lodify plan with code SWEET20. That's sweet like hotel suite 20. Just hit the link in the show notes to get started.